everybody, and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. It's yeet cold in the north of England today, I can tell you. Now, the Running Man legend is also in a very cold area of the UK, and that's Scotland. And is the Running Man Scotland's Bigfoot, or an ancient Celtic ghost? On a lonely road in Scotland, there are a number of Bigfoot or Wildman type encounters reported over the years. And these sightings are very close to a number of standing stones and stone circles. And as you know, that always interests me. How close to the stone circles can I actually get the sightings to fit? So 3 miles southwest of Banchory, and accessible via a network of narrow single-track forestry roads, lies a cluster of 3 stone circles dating back around 4,000 years. Now, 2 of the circles, Eslie the Greater and Eslie the Lesser, stand half a mile apart in fields, within sight of one another. And the best known of the circles is the 9 stains, obviously stone. Stains is the Scottish word for stone, as I've said before. So the 9 stain circle. And that forms a rough kind of equilateral triangle with each other. And once they also enjoyed wide views of each other, but because the 9 stains is now nature took over and they're within the forest, you can't actually see those stones anymore from the other 2. But, you know, many moons ago you could. So, while the setting in which you find the 9 stones, says the blog, is certainly not what its builders intended. It is a setting which contributes strongly to the remarkable atmosphere that surrounds it. Here, more than at perhaps any other stone circle in Aberdeenshire, it is possible to imagine our ancient ancestors as real people, celebrating key points of the year, or burying the remains of their dead. Catch it on a still summer's evening, especially if you are alone, and it's almost possible to believe the circle's builders are hiding within the nearby trees watching, simply waiting for you to leave so they can resume. Now, there's also a legend around these stones and around the area called the Running Man legend, and locals tell stories of a running man, a hairy upright figure that runs alongside cars, an almost impossible Sasquatch-like creature, separate from the grey man, which has been part of Scottish folklore and traditions for centuries and is still being reported in modern times. One sighting describes a creature whose face was not human, and it is known for its preference for running as opposed to walking within the woodlands, and it has a tendency to run alongside cars and look in through the windows. Now, the first report we look at seems to back up that claim. Torfin's, Aberdeen, a huge hairy figure chases the car, and this happened in July of 1994. 2 local men, Pete and George, were walking through a forestry track in the woods near their home in Torfin's, Aberdeen. When the men were nearing the end of the track, Pete saw a dark figure run from the trees on the left across the track. The figure disappeared into the trees on the right of the track. He at first thought it was a man, but the figure left a strange foreboding in Pete. George did not see the figure, and he was busy telling Pete he was imagining things when a face appeared out of the trees behind Pete's back, looking right at George. George was chilled to the bone, as the face he was looking at looked human, but was not human. It darted away just as quickly, and for some reason, George threw a large stone in its direction. The 2 friends then left the area feeling somewhat unnerved. But as it was a walk they had to do on a regular basis, they would have to return. So a few weeks later, the 2 friends, along with the 3rd man they had brought for added numbers, were to have another encounter with the creature as they were driving along the road into Torfin's, approximately 2 miles away from their first meeting. In the witnesses' own words, suddenly, from the side of the road, there came this great, muscular, hairy figure, and it was bounding out of the woods, and it started to run behind the car. At one point, it caught up and ran alongside the vehicle. Not seemingly out of breath, as it approached speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. Now, Pete describes the creature as strong and muscular, with red glowing eyes, a thick body covered in hair, and it was about 6 foot to 6'5" in height. It was all jet black in colour, he said. The figure ran after them for several minutes and then stopped abruptly in the middle of the road, leaving the terrified car occupants to carry on their journey into Torfins alone. Now, the same or similar creature has also been reported by a lady who lives in an isolated cottage on the edge of the forest where Pete and George first saw the figure. Now, she has seen it on 2 occasions, and at the time, on both times, it was watching her house from the woods, and she too describes the red glowing eyes. The only other report that I'm aware of is that of a man who caught a fleeting glance through a high-powered binocular, said the witness, as it darted through a forest clearing. Now, the Banchory gorilla, 2006. This report was made on behalf of someone else, and it says, a friend of mine told me recently, while she was out with friends at the back end of midnight, driving through the back roads near Banchory, a small town near Aberdeen, she and another person saw something cross the road in front of their car, and the only description she could give me was it was gorilla-like. Now, this is the most level-headed person I know. Some would say overly sceptical, definitely, and usually rubbishes any ideas of a Fortean bent that I tried to persuade her with, but she sticks to her gorilla story to this day. Now, less than a few miles away, a strange set of footprints caused a stir. According to David Ewing in the Aberdeenshire Evening Express, fresh evidence has been found of an ape-like creature roaming Aberdeenshire. Student Peter Dignan found a large footprint on the Hill of Kerr next to a drinking trough. Peter explains, I was walking the dog and I came across them at the drinking trough. The ground was muddy underneath it. At first, I just laughed about the footprint, but then I went home to get my camera, as they were just so strange. The day I actually see something is the day I find a new route to walk, he said. Now, no image was attached to the article, so I'm unable to share that with you. And of course, these are not the only hairy bipedal reports that come to light. There are many reports that come in from the west coast to the east coast. Now, do the standing stones come into play in any way? Are they a gateway of some kind? Is it the person themselves, was Pete or George or the lady in the cottage? Is it something about them that can see the creatures? Or is it something about the creatures that interacts with humans? I mean, it's just a massive smorgasbord of questions, really, isn't it? But as we look at each encounter and as we go through the months, you will realise that most of them are actually around these ancient sites. And I found it interesting in the blog that they stated they could be a burial site, because normally around our ancient burial sites, we see the dogmen-like creatures, and there is no mention of that in the Banchory or Torfins area. But I'm unsure whether it is an actual burial site, being a 9-stone circle. There will be some relevance within that. And the fact that the stones are in a triangular pattern, that could be incredibly important. Or there are more stones out there that have now been lost or have never been discovered that would change that triangular pattern into something else. So it's all guesswork, isn't it, at the moment? What I would love to do, and if there's any electricians out there or paranormal investigators that have EMF meters, if you're in an area of the sighting reports and there is a standing stone or an ancient site, would you see on your EMF meter if there is any change in the electrical activity around, above, or near to that stone? Because I would just be really interested to know, in all honesty. So, we do have a number of Scottish members here at BBR that investigate these cases and the areas that they happen in. And if you would like to join them in the field, or for a chat online, just join our community by commenting below, or just by debbiehatswell@gmail.com, and we will get somebody to sort that out for you. So until next time, have a wonderful night. Good night.